All right, this is take two on Larry Brooks. I'm just going to read through what he said here. Uh, all right, Alex Ovechkin provided the gravitational pull for his teammates that have been missing in each of his and the Capitals' 9 previous trips to the dance. He and notable contributions from Evgeny Kuznetsov made the difference in the franchise's first cup in its 44-year history. Notable contribution from Evgeny Kuznetsov? That's an understatement. Ovechkin, the greatest goal scorer of his generation by approximately the same margin that Bobby Orr was the greatest defenseman of his time, earned the Conn Smythe and earned his place at the top of the NHL mountain. Right. Stop. Stop there. Move on to the next part of the article. No. He didn't do that. But this time Ovechkin was able to survive his nemesis, Sidney Crosby. Let's not rush to rewrite history and airbrush the grade 8's blemishes out of the picture. After losing last year's second-round Game 7 to the Penguins, Ovechkin was told that he was fat by a player he respects. He reported this year in condition befitting a 32-year-old. I don't know why that's in there. I mean that. I don't know why that's in there. The seeming burial of what Washington did 2 days ago has already started. Yeah, they won, but who cares? It doesn't count. Doesn't count. And then he gets into this time the winner of the Patrick Ewing Lifetime Achievement Award for most failed postseason guarantees got it right. Did Ovechkin make a bunch of guarantees that he didn't follow through on? Because I don't remember that part of his career. I don't remember Ovechkin every year saying, we're going to win this one, and then they lose. And not only that, but out of nowhere taking a shot at Patrick Ewing is just... I get that he's New York Post, but honestly, to compare basketball, a sport where one guy can make a massive amount of difference, look at the Cavaliers, to a sport like hockey where you really need the depth. Ovechkin has been a key guy for them, and that's understating it, for many years. The reason they win it this year, it's that depth, man. It's the fact that when the game starts turning against them, and you're shutting Ovechkin down, other people can hurt you. All you had to do against the Capitals some of these seasons was just keep Ovechkin off the board. They can't score. And it's maddening. It's maddening to watch this narrative go on that, well, it's just Ovechkin's fault. There was a video last year that I did on Is It Ovechkin's Fault? And you can go back and look for it. I state that it's not. I don't put the blame on Ovechkin. The team just wasn't good enough. This year they got the character guys that they needed, not necessarily as highly paid and praised as the players that they lost, but they got that sandpaper they needed. They got that attitude they needed. And some really key performances by guys so that Ovechkin didn't have to do it by himself. And then he goes on to add, he scored difference-making goals, made difference-making plays. This time, too, neither Ovechkin nor the Caps had to go through Henrik Lundqvist the way they couldn't in successive 7-game defeats in 2012, 2013, and 2015. How many Stanley Cups did the Rangers win with that team? Larry Brooks. 0. Yes. Henrik Lundqvist in Game 7s is amazing. Henrik Lundqvist is an amazing goaltender who, if he played somewhere other than the Rangers, maybe he'd have a cup ring. And when he retires without a cup ring, if that's what happens, it's criminal. But to state that somehow, well, they made it, but they didn't have to go through the Rangers, it's that diminishing thing that fans do. They went through the Penguins. That was the dragon they had to slay, was the Penguins. Then they went through Tampa, and I don't know if anybody was paying attention. Tampa was pretty good this year. Tampa was a pretty good team, and Washington beat them in Tampa in Game 7. And he says, but again, when Alex Rodriguez had his breakthrough postseason, lifting the Yankees to the 2009 World Series by going 19 for 52 with 6 homers and 18 RBIs, that didn't mean he hadn't gone 7 for 44 with 1 homer and 1 RBI from 2005 to 2007 in consecutive first-round defeats. Ovechkin has never had a really crappy postseason that's gone on for any period of time. He's had... I'm trying to remember now. I know I did the stats. I know I did a video on Ovechkin, 2 weeks ago? A week ago? 2 weeks ago? On his standing, and I've done videos on his goal scoring, and I did a video a year ago on whether or not he was the problem, and he's not. He was never the problem in Washington. Last year, the problem in that Game 7 against Pittsburgh, did he play well? No. But there was blame to go around in that game. And to compare his record to that of A-Rod, Ovechkin is generally a popular player that people like. A-Rod was not. A-Rod was specifically in it for himself. He was a selfish player. Ovechkin clearly has emerged from that. He was at one time. There was a time where I couldn't stand Ovechkin because he showboated and he seemed selfish and he didn't seem interested in whether or not his team won. He was more interested in himself. But the diminishing of what the Capitals did continues further down in this article. Once the glass skates ultimately proved a bit tight for Marc-Andre Fleury and the Golden Cinderellas, why don't I just say Golden Knights? The final round became a rather routine affair, the more talented squad winning decisively. See, what he does here is, he says, well, yeah, they didn't play anybody in the final. And he mentions that, well, Nashville and Winnipeg had to play each other in the second round because the NHL likes to see mediocre teams in the final. It says right here, the core mission of the NHL is to give lesser teams their best chance at winning. It's not, though. They have a divisional system, and some divisions are going to be better than others. But again, I heard this argument back in 2006 when Carolina won the Cup. Carolina won the Cup, but look, they had an easy division, they had an easy road, blah, blah, blah. Give me a break. When you win the Stanley Cup, you've beaten 30 other teams. Nashville, with the way that Pekka Rinne played in that second round against Winnipeg, with the way that defense played against Winnipeg, would they have really stood a chance against Vegas? The answer is no. Not at all. And Winnipeg came out against Vegas after that 7-game series, and were they tired? Probably. But Washington was coming out of a 7-game series too, and they still laid a beating on Vegas. 4 out of 5 games. They were able to expose something with Marc-Andre Fleury and that defense that the 3 teams that previously played against Vegas, they couldn't do. They couldn't do those cross-crease passes, and I don't know why Winnipeg couldn't, and I don't know why the Kings couldn't, and why San Jose couldn't, but they didn't. The Kings had a Stanley Cup in 2012 and 2014. The Sharks were in the final in 2016, and the Jets were the number 2 team in the NHL this year in the standings, behind number 1, which was Nashville. And nobody took Nashville seriously according to the President's Trophy jinx. No, people picked Nashville. I picked Nashville? Right. Because the President's Trophy jinx is ridiculous too. The Capitals won their division. They finished ahead of Pittsburgh. And, newsflash, they finished way ahead of the Rangers. To try to diminish what a team has done is a strange thing because it depends on the team. In 2017, when the Penguins won, we heard about how great they were. And rightfully so. I had no problem with that at all. I had no problem with people praising the Penguins. Back-to-back championships. Hey, that is a great thing for them. And if they had won this year, let's back up a little bit. If the Penguins win over Washington and then beat Tampa in 7 and they beat Vegas in 5, are we reading this article? Are we going to hear, well, yeah, Crosby won again, but really think about who they played in the finals. Might have been different if it had been Nashville and Winnipeg. Wouldn't have been. Really wouldn't have been. And it's crazy because to me, when a team loses in the playoffs, they're out. It's so strange that there's this obsession with, well, yeah, your team's won, but if they'd played my team, they would have lost. Seems to be that theory, and it happens across all sports. This is not restricted to hockey. But what Brooks has done here, and I'll link to the article below this, and I tweeted the article out as well. That's why I'm doing this, because I'm kind of ticked off with it. Because the guy wins the Stanley Cup 2 days ago, and he's having fun with it, and the press wants to tear into him, because it's what certain people in the press do, and it's not all. So a lot of people in the press have been tweeting out the last couple of days about how happy they are for Ovechkin, and yet here it is, well, it doesn't erase his failures. Nothing erases your failures. But how many times has Marc-Andre Fleury won 16 games in a Stanley Cup run? I'll let you guys go look it up. How many times was Marc-Andre Fleury out in the first round and had poor numbers? Marc-Andre Fleury struggled plenty in the playoffs before the 2016 playoffs took place. Does anybody remember in the 2016 playoffs when Matt Murray took his job, Fleury goes in to try to take it back, and he wasn't good enough to do it? So Fleury stayed as the starter? No. But we don't think about it because it's Marc-Andre Fleury. So why do Ovechkin's sins have to remain on the books? Don't forget them. Don't forget now when he choked. I know he's got that Stanley Cup and he's skating around the ice with it, but don't forget all those times he choked, because he didn't. It wasn't on him. It wasn't on him. And it is this weird narrative that's been out there for years. And, you know, he's got a Conn Smythe. He's got Hart trophies. He's got Maurice Richard trophies. He now has a Stanley Cup. He is going to the Hall of Fame. He's going on the first ballot. And he may very well, before he retires, pass Wayne Gretzky's goal record. I really think he's got a half-decent shot at it. As long as he stays active and doesn't go to the KHL, he's got a pretty darn good shot at it. And yet, even if he does that, there'll be naysayers that go, well, yeah, but if you include all of Gordie Howe's goals in the WHA, he hasn't caught Gordie Howe. Well, yeah, but if you include, like, Gretzky had those goals with Indianapolis and with the Oilers before they came over to the NHL, he didn't really beat, like, there's this narrative where certain players, Ovechkin being number one, I think, anytime he accomplishes something, immediately you get this kind of stuff that, well, yeah, but it is so weird. And I'm saying this too. If Winnipeg wins in round 3 and knocks out Vegas, the narrative in this would be, well, they beat Winnipeg in the finals, but Winnipeg was a young team just learning, and they clearly weren't as battle tested as Nashville. It would have been different if it was Nashville. If Nashville had been the team they beat in the final, it would have been, they beat Nashville in the final, but Nashville was in the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row, and they're pretty beat up from playing so much hockey, so they were pretty worn out, so that's probably why Washington beat them. See what I'm saying? Like, you can make that argument till the cows come home, that no matter who wins the Stanley Cup, you can argue, well, yeah, they didn't have to go through this guy or this team. And it's all BS. All right, I'm done ranting on this. I'm going to go ahead and post this, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of my evening. And I hope you guys enjoy your evening as well. And this is not something that's just, towards the Capitals. If I saw an article tomorrow talking about Crosby being in decline, or, geez, Crosby kind of choked against the Washington Capitals, you'd see a video about that too. Ovechkin busted his ass this year, and they get the Stanley Cup, and then this starts. So I'll link to the article in the description for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and I know there's people who are going to agree with this article. But it's insane because there are a lot of players who got 0 Stanley Cups in their career, and there are plenty of greats in the NHL who got 1. So the idea that, oh, well, he's only got 1 is ridiculous. Just ridiculous. But again, opinions, everybody has a right to a difference of opinion. My opinion is Ovi is now hands down one of the greatest of all time, and maybe there are some people who just don't want to admit it. Let me know your thoughts. Like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you again soon.